Welcome back to this series in the series. In the last video, we created our data table. In this video, we will now visualize our results by creating a chart. Specifically, we will create a floating chart. Let's see how this works right now. So this is where we stopped last time. We created our calculation right here and this data table. Now we want to visualize, well, actually this result right here. Well, and to do this, we need to create a chart. So let's maybe start right here and write chart, like that. Well, but now that we want to create that chart, and it's kind of a special chart, as I said, it's a floating chart, I think we should first take a look at the final result, so what this chart should look like in the end, to understand what we actually need right here, well, to create it. So if you look at this chart right now, you can see that it's going to be a bar chart, basically. And the first thing we need is actually the name of that specific bar. In that case, well, we simply need the repayment and the repayment amount. So the annual repayment that is defined right here in this column. So let's do this maybe and not start right here because we have to add some more things right here in a few minutes, but maybe start right there and let's maybe name it values, maybe values because it's going to be more values, and make it bold. And then, well, we need the repayment. Let's maybe write a formula. Let's call it repayment equals, then the quotation mark, and then simply add this part right here, and then refer to the first repayment right here. If we now press enter and increase the column width right here, well, then you see that we got the first part of our chart that we want to create. So how can we continue now? Well, if you again take a look at the final result, you can see, well, nothing now. But that's not true. This is just an invisible bar actually, but we need a bar right there. And this bar could actually be, let's link it again, right here, if we link that, to the minimum interest amount that we have to pay for our repayment equals 800 case, so the first case right here. If we now press enter, then we have that minimum value right here, but this is not totally correct. Because if you take another look at the result, you can see that after this invisible bar, there is this line. Now, this line should actually be exactly at the position of this 420. But the problem is that if you make this line like that, so only one, well, data point big, then you can barely see it. So it might make more sense to increase the size or the width of that line. Let me show you what that means. So we could go right here and name that line size and maybe say that this should be, I don't know, 20 maybe, like that. Now what does this mean right now? If we have a line which needs 20 data points, then we need space for these data points. Well, and one easy way to, well, get that space is if we simply say that 50% of that line size should be part of the first bar, so of this invisible bar, and the other 50% should be part of the following bar, so of that orange bar right here. Now this means that our first invisible bar should not end at 420, but at 420 minus the line size divided by 2, like that. So at 410. And this is where we will end with the first bar. And after this bar comes, well, the 20. So we can simply link that right here. And we can fix that if we want to by pressing F4, like this. And now we got the first two steps that you can see in that illustration. We got the 410, which is the first part of the invisible bar, and then we have the 20, so the first line. Now how do we continue? Well, we need that second bar, that orange bar now. And we can simply add that by writing equals. Now the second part is 840, right here. And this is it. No, because we cannot simply add that. We can only add, or we should only add the delta, because otherwise the bar chart wouldn't make sense in the end. So we can use that 840, which is fine, but now we have to deduct, well, minus the sum of everything we got so far, like that. And we can close that sum. And if we then also fix the column right here by pressing F4 3 times, then we can drag that formula. You will see how this works in a few seconds. But the important thing now is that we deducted the part or the data points that we already have in our bar. So this part. But we again need to deduct also 50% of the line size. Now this means we have to go right here and again write minus the line size divided by 2, like this. Let's press enter now. And you see that we have 400 right here. Now we have the first part, that first purple part now. And now we again need our orange line. So we can simply take this one, the 20 right here, and copy it right there. So now we have our first invisible bar right here. We have our first line. We have the first purple bar and the second line. And now we need, well, the second purple bar then. Well, and to get this, we can simply select this cell right here and now copy it and paste it right there. If we now press F2, then we only have to adjust this part right here and drag it right here to the line size. Well, because we didn't fix it, so this was a mistake that we did, but not a problem. We can fix that quickly like this. And we have to drag this part onto the last value right there. If we now press enter, then we see that we now got the second purple bar. Well, and we now simply need to copy that 20 right here to finally create the third line that we need. Now there is one thing that we should fix though, and this is the line size reference, because let's see, yeah, this should always be fixed. So let's press right here and press F4. Here it is fine. Here we should fix it also. And the same thing is true right here, like that. Now it's fine. And with that, we can now actually create our chart. Let me maybe first again apply some formatting right here. You know that in the meanwhile, I like to format things sometimes. So let's maybe do it like this and make it bold again. I think now this looks nice. But the thing is that we want to create a chart actually. Well, let's simply select our values now, right here, and go to Insert. Select the column, or the bar charts actually in our case, and now select that second bar chart that we have right here. If you click onto that, and maybe drag it right here, we need some space because we will add some more lines up here in a few seconds. Maybe drag it right here. Well, then it looks kind of wrong, but we can quickly fix that by right-clicking it, going to select data, and now switch rows and columns right here. And if we now press OK, well, then you see that this bar doesn't really look good. But if we change the colors now, you will see something really interesting. So let's maybe first select this first part. And as I said, this should be the invisible part of that chart. So if we go to Format now, go to Shape Fill and make it to No Fill or change it to No Fill, then this looks fine. Then we have that first line. We will come back to that in a few seconds. And then we have the first bar part, which should be with a color. But let's maybe make that purple like that. You can, of course, select the colors as you prefer. I just like that purple and orange style. And then we have the second line, again, something we will talk about in a few seconds. And then we have the second part of the bar that should have a color. So I'll make that purple again. Now, this is nice. But the problem is that we cannot see the lines actually. And this is the reason why we created it like this. Because if you now select I2, so the line size cell, and change that to, I don't know, 50 for example, then you see that the line size immediately increases. And this is the great thing, because when you create that chart like this, you are really free on how to create or design the chart in the end, depending on the data that you want to visualize. So we now see the lines better, so we can also make that second line, this one right here. We go to Format, Shape Fill in that orange maybe, and do the same thing for the third line, like that. Now, what else could we do right here? Well, we could, for example, select the chart now and go to Design, add Chart Element, and maybe add the chart title right here, maybe above the chart. And if we double-click that, we could name that interest paid, for example, like this. So this is nice, but well, we don't have one repayment only, right? If you look at our data table again, you can see that we have 3 different repayments. So 800, 600, and 150. We can change this, of course, if you want to, but for the moment we have these values. Well, the good thing is that we created that value area right here. And if you now simply select all the lines and then drag it down like this, well, then you see that we immediately have all the values that we got in our data table. And if you want to make sure that the values you have right here are correct, then you can simply select the first line, for example, like this. And then you see it's 2,125, which makes total sense because the total value is 2,100. But then we have to add 50% of the line size, so 25. This means we need 2,125 in total right here. If we do it with the second line right here, then we see that we have 2,225, which is again 25 above that value right here. And we can do the same thing for the last line right here, 2,450, which is again 25 above the last value in this cell right here. This was just a quick check that you can do to make sure that the calculation is not wrong right here. But the important thing is that, well, we have the data now right here as chart inputs, but we also want to have this data in our chart. And we can do this really quickly by simply clicking right here. And now simply select that part right here in the chart, or in the table actually, drag it down, whoops. And as you can see, you immediately have now visualized all 3 cases actually that you have in your sensitivity analysis. Now this looks really nice actually. But there is one last thing that I would like to add. I would like to add some data labels because, well, you can see the values right here, but I think it's better to really see the numbers in here and in the area of these lines right there. To add this, you simply select the first line. Oops, not the bar, the line actually, right here. And if you now right-click it and select Add Data Labels, well, then you see the labels right here. Not really good to see, so let's select it and right-click it now. And go to Format Data Labels right here. Now you change that from center to inside end. And now you see the data label right here. So we can now close this actually. And now select the second line right here and add the labels. And do the same thing for the last line, like right there. So again, let's right click it, press Format Data Labels. And here we have to press Inside Base. Now it's formatted correctly. And, well, let's take a look at this again. Well, we cannot see a lot in that central line, so let's close that first. But if we simply go to Format and add a shape fill, maybe this light gray, for example, well, then we can also see that. So this looks really nice right now. However, the values displayed are not correct, right? Because if the repayment equals 800, then the minimum amount of interest that we have to pay should not be 50, it should be 420. And the maximum amount should also not be 50, it should be 2,100. And we can see that the line is actually correct, but the data label is wrong. We can also change that quickly. We only have to click right here, so again select the data labels. Now right click it. Now go to Format Data Labels one last time. And in this label options area, we can define what the label should contain. So if we change that from a value to a value from a cell, right here, then we can select a data label range. Now, this simply means if we click right here, then you can select, well, the range actually. The important thing is that you select that range right here in our initial data table that we have. If you do that, click right here and press OK. Well, then you see that you have 2 values in here, but if you go back to your label options and unselect the values, well, then this looks nice. And now it is correct, because if the repayment is equal to 150, then the minimum should be 485. For 600, it should be 440, and for 800, it should be 420. Now, the same thing can be done for the second data label right here. So I just selected it, select value from cells, click right here, and now select the label range right here. Press right there and press OK. Again, unselect the value right here. And now do the last thing right here in the last data label, select the value from cell, press right here, and select the last column right there, press OK, and unselect the value. And now let's close that. And this is our chart actually now. This chart is really great because if you now change an assumption in your sensitivity analysis, let's say you want to change the repayment to 1,200, like that, like I did it right here, and press enter, well, then you see that the entire chart updates dynamically. And this includes everything. This includes the line, the bar, the data labels, so, well, everything actually. This is true. You can also change it right here to 200 if you want to, like that. And you can also change that to 700 or this to 3%. So you can change that as you prefer. The important thing is, of course, that the line is not exactly at the position that you describe right here. We talked about that. It's just necessary to do it like this because, well, otherwise you wouldn't see the line. But as you have the combination of the line actually and the value right here, I think this is totally fine. And as we also saw, we can change the line size all the time right here. We can change to 30 to make it smaller, or even to 80 to have these really big lines, which I don't like, so let's change to 40 maybe, like that. And this is it actually. This is what I wanted to show you. So in the last video, you saw how you can create such a sensitivity analysis with a data table. And in this video, you finally saw how you can easily visualize that information in a, as I think, quite nice looking chart. So I hope this helps you when you work with Excel, and you can of course apply that to bigger models because that's just a kind of a simple example actually. And the only thing I can say right now is thanks a lot for watching and hope to see you in the next videos. Bye bye.